The Varkali Phantom Fleet was a name whispered across the galaxy. Every merchant feared them. Every security force failed to stop them. These alien pirates were ghosts, appearing out of nowhere, striking fast, and vanishing without a trace. Their ships left no signal, no debris, no hyperspace trail. They had been raiding for 5 years. Hundreds of cargo ships had been lost. The Galactic Trade Authority, GTA, tried everything: patrols, bounty hunters, even warships, but nothing worked. Some believed the Varkali had secret wormhole technology. Others thought they had spies inside the GTA. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain: no one could catch them. A desperate galaxy. On Zyra Prime, a major trade hub, the situation had become unbearable. The Varkali attacked weekly, stealing rare minerals, weapons, and high-tech goods. Merchants refused to travel through GTA-protected space, choosing riskier independent routes instead. This weakened the GTA's influence. Frustrated and desperate, the GTA High Command issued the largest bounty in history: 500 million credits to the one who finds and destroys the Varkali Phantom Fleet. The offer spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every bounty hunter, mercenary, and rogue trader considered taking the job. But in the end, no one dared. The Varkali were unbeatable. No one wanted to die chasing ghosts. The human who accepted the challenge. But then came a name that surprised everyone: Dane Callahan. Dane was a human mercenary, known for completing impossible jobs. He had once taken down a crime syndicate on Tarsus 4 alone. He had survived a manhunt by the Drachnor enforcers, a reptilian race feared for their ruthlessness. He was not the strongest, nor the fastest, but he was relentless. When asked why he took the job, Dane's answer was simple: because no one else can. The GTA officers laughed at first. A single human, doing what entire fleets had failed to do. Ridiculous. But when they looked into Dane's history, their laughter stopped. He had never failed a contract. The hunter's approach. Dane didn't chase rumors or legends. He started with data. Locked inside a GTA office, he spent days analyzing every Varkali attack. He requested cargo manifests, ship logs, distress signals, and even black market transactions. The GTA officers thought he was wasting time. But then, Dane saw something no one else had. The Varkali weren't attacking randomly. They had a pattern, a system hidden beneath the chaos. They always struck within a specific time window after major shipments were logged. They never hit the same route twice in a row, but their attacks formed a spiral across the sector, slowly moving toward richer trade zones. They weren't just looters. They were following a strategy. Setting the bait. Dane knew that to catch them, he had to make them come to him. He worked with a corrupt shipbroker on Zyra Prime to leak false information. A transport carrying prototype military weapons would be passing through an unguarded trade lane. The ship had no real cargo. It was a decoy. For days, nothing happened. Then, on the 7th day, Dane got the alert. A distress beacon from the decoy ship. The Varkali had taken the bait. The first contact. Dane was already in his ship, the Iron Fang, waiting in a nearby asteroid field. He powered up his stealth systems and followed the signal. He knew he couldn't fight them head-on. Instead, he planned to get one thing no one else had ever gotten before: proof of their escape route. As he approached, he saw them. 3 sleek black Varkali warships hovered near the disabled decoy vessel. Their design was strange, organic, almost like they were grown instead of built. Their hulls shimmered, bending light like a mirage. This was why no one had tracked them before. Their ships were equipped with advanced cloaking systems, nearly impossible to detect. Dane activated his long-range scanner, setting it to passive mode. Any active scan would alert them. He watched as the Varkali loaded stolen cargo. Then, in an instant, their ships vanished, not into hyperspace, not through a wormhole, but something else. A phase shift. Dane's eyes widened. That was not standard technology. But he had seen it, And he had an idea. A silent victory. Just before the Varkali disappeared, Dane launched a tiny stealth tracker, no bigger than a coin, onto the enemy's hull. It was designed to remain dormant, invisible to sensors, until activated remotely. If it worked, it would lead him straight to the Phantom Fleet's hidden base. Dane leaned back in his pilot's seat, exhaling slowly. For the first time in 5 years, someone had tracked the untrackable. He smiled. The hunt had begun. Dane Callahan sat in the cockpit of his ship, the Iron Fang, watching the tracker's signal on his screen. A small red dot blinked steadily. It was working. For the first time in history, someone had a trail leading to the Varkali Phantom Fleet. He had done what no one else could. But now came the hard part. Tracking them was one thing. Surviving what came next was another. The chase begins. Dane adjusted his ship's heading, following the signal. The Varkali ships had vanished in an instant, using a phase shift. That wasn't normal warp travel. That was something far more advanced. "All right, let's see where you went," Dane muttered. He activated his vector analysis software, a program he had modified himself. The tracker didn't show direct coordinates, but it gave movement data. Acceleration, trajectory, phase shift frequency. Dane studied the numbers. Then he smiled. They weren't jumping at random. They had a destination. The Ghost Trail. For the next few hours, Dane carefully followed the path. He couldn't jump directly to them. If he did, they would detect him immediately. Instead, he took indirect routes, making calculated mini-jumps through nearby sectors. He passed through the Draken Nebula, where ion storms rage. He navigated the Osiris Belt, dodging massive asteroids. He even skimmed past an abandoned space station, its metal husk floating silently in the void. The Varkali were smart. They had chosen a route that was difficult to track. But Dane was smarter. He stayed patient, always checking the tracker's signal, adjusting course. Every step brought him closer. The hidden sector. After nearly a day of careful pursuit, Dane's ship emerged into an uncharted sector. His scanners picked up almost nothing. No planets, no stations, no trade routes. Just empty space. At least, that's what it looked like. Dane knew better. The Varkali weren't just hiding. They were invisible. He switched his ship's sensors to a different mode, scanning for gravitational anomalies. And there it was. A distortion in space, faint but real. Something big was there, cloaked behind advanced tech. Dane exhaled slowly. He had found them. The Phantom Fleet revealed. He edged his ship closer, keeping his engines at minimal output to avoid detection. As he moved, the distortion took shape. A fleet of massive warships hovered in the void, hidden behind advanced stealth fields. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb light, making them blend into space itself. And at the center of it all was something even bigger. A colossal space station, built inside a swirling phase rift. A tear in space itself. That was their home base. That was how they disappeared so easily. Dane's jaw tightened. Now, he understood why no one had ever found them. The Varkali weren't just using cloaking technology. They were using dimensional shifting to hide between layers of reality. The risky plan. Dane knew he had a choice. He could leave now, return to the Galactic Trade Authority, and report his findings. But by the time they acted, the Varkali would be gone. No, that wouldn't work. He had to get inside. Dane activated his ship's stealth mode and began moving toward the nearest enemy vessel. His plan was dangerous, borderline insane, but it was his only shot. If he could board one of their ships, he might learn more about how they operated. The infiltration. Dane carefully piloted his ship toward a smaller Varkali frigate. It was docked near the main station, its energy shields down. Perfect. Using his ship's magnetic grappling system, he latched onto the frigate's hull and engaged his personal Zerog suit. He climbed out of his cockpit and onto the enemy ship, his suit blending with the darkness. Carefully, he moved along the hull, searching for an access point. Then he found it, a maintenance hatch. With practiced hands, he used a hacking device to override the security lock. The hatch hissed open, and Dane slipped inside, behind enemy lines. The inside of the Varkali ship was dimly lit, with walls made of strange, organic metal. The air smelled metallic, mixed with something alien and unfamiliar. Dane moved silently, his pistol in hand. He could hear distant voices, guttural, rough, speaking in the Varkali tongue. He had to be careful. One mistake, and he was dead. As he crept through the corridors, he found a data terminal. Quickly, he connected his portable hacking device. The screen flickered, displaying lines of alien code. Then, something caught his eye. A battle plan. The Varkali weren't just raiding for resources. They were preparing for something bigger, a full-scale invasion. Dane's heart pounded. If he could get this intel back to the GTA, he could stop a war before it started. But before he could finish the download, an alarm blared. He had been discovered. The escape. Dane cursed under his breath as red lights flashed. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The Varkali were coming. He grabbed his data device and sprinted. The ship shook as the crew mobilized. Dane needed to reach the hatch. Fast. A Varkali guard rounded the corner. Dane didn't hesitate. He fired a stun shot, dropping the alien instantly. He kept running, dodging down narrow hallways. He reached the hatch, slammed it open, and launched himself into space just as the ship's security systems activated. His suit's thrusters fired, propelling him back toward the Iron Fang. He barely made it inside before the Varkali ship started scanning. He powered up his engines, shut off all active systems, and drifted into the shadows of a nearby asteroid. Seconds felt like hours. Then, finally, the alarms on the enemy ship stopped. They thought he was gone. Dane exhaled, gripping the data device tightly. He had what he needed. Now he just had to survive long enough to use it. Dane Callahan sat in the dim cockpit of the Iron Fang, his breathing steady but his mind racing. The data he had stolen from the Varkali Phantom Fleet was more than just useful. It was terrifying. The Varkali weren't just attacking trade ships for loot. They were preparing for war. Their hidden base inside the Phase Rift wasn't just a hideout. It was a staging ground for a massive invasion. If they succeeded, the Galactic Trade Authority, GTA, would fall, and the Varkali would take control of key trade routes across the sector. Dane had the proof in his hands. But getting out of enemy territory was only half the battle. Now he had to use this information. Hunted in the dark, Dane knew the Varkali were on high alert. His infiltration had spooked them. If they found out he was still nearby, they would hunt him down without mercy. So he waited. For hours, he kept his ship's systems offline, drifting among the asteroid field near the Varkali fleet. His oxygen levels were dropping, but he had no choice. He couldn't risk detection. Finally, the enemy's patrols slowed. The Varkali assumed he was gone. That was their mistake. Dane powered up his ship silently, running on low energy mode. He had a plan, one that would either work perfectly or get him killed. He needed to force the Varkali into revealing themselves to the galaxy. Setting the perfect trap. Dane couldn't defeat the Varkali fleet alone, but he could make them expose their true power. He activated his comms and contacted an old acquaintance, Kara Voss, a high-ranking GTA officer. She was one of the few people he trusted. "I have proof the Varkali are preparing an invasion," Dane said, his voice calm but firm. There was silence on the other end. Then, Kara spoke. "If that's true, we need to act fast. Where are you?" "Deep in enemy space," Dane replied. "But I have a plan. I need you to spread false intel. Make the Varkali think a massive weapon shipment is being moved through Sector 12. Kara hesitated. "That's a GTA stronghold. They wouldn't dare attack there." Dane smirked. They would if they believed that shipment could change the war before it even starts. She understood immediately. You want to draw them out. Exactly. The bait is set. Over the next few days, the false intelligence spread through the galaxy. It was subtle, leaked through black market channels, whispered in criminal circles. The story was simple. A heavily armed GTA convoy was transporting prototype weapons, advanced enough to wipe out an entire fleet. The Varkali wouldn't be able to resist. If they attacked, the GTA would finally see their true numbers, their technology, and their tactics. And more importantly, they would have no choice but to respond with full military force. Dane waited, watching. And then, the trap sprang shut. The Phantom Fleet takes the bait. The Varkali took the bait faster than expected. Their fleet moved out of the phase rift, heading straight for Sector 12. Dane watched as dozens of warships, sleek, black, and deadly, emerged into real space. It was the first time they had fully revealed themselves. This was their biggest mistake. Kara and the GTA had been waiting. The moment the Varkali fleet arrived, long-range scanners picked up their movements. The GTA, now knowing the enemy's true strength, launched their response. A full battle fleet jumped into the sector, ready for war. Chaos in the stars. The battle erupted in an instant. The Varkali were powerful, but the GTA was ready. Warships clashed in deep space, laser fire cutting through the darkness. Explosions lit up the void as both sides took heavy losses. Dane didn't join the fight. Not yet. He had one more mission. While the fleets battled, he piloted the Iron Fang back toward the Varkali's now unprotected base inside the phase rift. If he could destroy their dimensional technology, they would lose their greatest advantage. Into the rift. Dane pushed his ship to its limits, diving into the rift before the Varkali realized what was happening. The massive space station loomed ahead, now vulnerable without its warships. He launched a series of precision strikes, targeting key power cores. Explosions rippled across the station as alarms blared. The phase-shifting tech began to fail, and for the first time, the base became fully visible to the outside world. The Varkali had nowhere left to hide. Escape and victory. With the phase rift collapsing, Dane had seconds to escape. He pulled his ship into a high-speed dive, weaving through the debris as the station began to break apart. He barely made it out before the entire structure exploded behind him. As he re-entered normal space, he saw the battle still raging. But now, the Varkali were losing. With their home base destroyed and their stealth technology failing, they had no choice but to retreat. The GTA fleet pushed forward, forcing the remaining enemy ships into full retreat. The battle was over, and for the first time in 5 years, the Phantom Fleet was no longer untouchable. The legend grows. As Dane flew away, his comms lit up. Kara's voice came through. "You just changed the course of history," she said. Dane smirked. Just another job. His name would be whispered across the galaxy now. The only human who had ever tracked and outsmarted the Phantom Fleet. But he wasn't done yet. Somewhere out there, the Varkali warlord Korishun was still alive. And Dane Callahan never left a job unfinished. Dane Callahan leaned back in the cockpit of the Iron Fang, watching the chaos unfold on his screen. The Varkali Phantom Fleet was in full retreat, their once invincible forces now scattered. The destruction of their phase rift base had crippled their ability to hide. It was a victory. But Dane knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. The Varkali weren't the type to forgive and forget. And at the heart of their fury was warlord Korishun. Dane had humiliated him. And men like Zun didn't take humiliation lightly. A message of vengeance. As the Iron Fang flew away from the battlefield, Dane's comms suddenly crackled to life. The deep, guttural voice filled the cockpit. Human. Dane's grip on the controls tightened. He knew that voice. It was Korishun himself. The warlord continued, his tone calm but filled with cold rage. You have done what no one else dared. You found us. You fought us. You destroyed what we built. A pause. Then, quieter, deadlier. I will repay this insult in blood. Dane smirked, but his muscles tensed. He knew threats when he heard them. And this wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. But before Dane could reply, the transmission cut off. Zun had just declared war on him personally. Nowhere is safe. Dane knew he needed to get back to the Galactic Trade Authority HQ before the Varkali struck again. But Zun was faster. The moment Dane exited hyperspace near Atlas Station, his ship's alarm screamed. Multiple enemy signatures detected. His AI warned. Dane cursed. The Varkali had set a trap. 3 enemy warships cloaked around him, sleek and black, their weapons locking onto his position. Dane had no time to think, only to act. The dogfight. Missiles streaked toward him. Dane rolled hard, diving straight into a nearby asteroid field. The Iron Fang twisted through the dense rock formations, engines flaring as he dodged incoming fire. The Varkali pilots followed, fast and relentless. Dane pulled off a tight spin, flipping his ship backward in a move that defied physics. As the first enemy fighter passed him, he fired his pulse cannons, ripping through its hull. 1 down. The second ship came at him from the side, firing plasma rounds. Dane jerked the controls, skimming the surface of a massive asteroid, using it as a shield. The plasma blast struck the rock instead, sending debris flying. Dane suddenly cut his engines, letting the second ship overshoot him. Then he fired a seeker missile. The enemy ship exploded in a burst of fire and metal. 2 down. The last ship, a Varkali command fighter, was smarter. It anticipated Dane's moves, staying behind him, its weapons locking on. Dane had one trick left. He flew straight toward the largest asteroid he could see. At the last second, he flipped his ship upside down and boosted backward. The enemy fighter couldn't react in time. It slammed directly into the asteroid, exploding on impact. Dane exhaled sharply. 3 down. But he wasn't safe yet. The warlord's arrival. Before Dane could set a course to Atlas Station, a massive shadow loomed over him. A Varkali dreadnought, Zun's personal warship, appeared out of hyperspace. Dane's scanners lit up. This was bad. The dreadnought was too powerful for a one-man ship like his. Dane needed an escape plan. Fast. The desperate escape. Dane pushed his ship's engines to the limit, diving back into the asteroid field. But the dreadnought was already locking onto him. His ship's shields flickered as energy blasts rained down. One direct hit, and he was done. Suddenly, his comms crackled. Dane, we've got you. It was Caravos. Out of hyperspace, a squadron of GTA fighters and a heavy cruiser jumped in, weapons blazing. The battlefield erupted in fire. The GTA ships distracted the dreadnought just long enough for Dane to make his move. He locked in his hyperdrive coordinates and punched the controls. With a flash of light, he vanished into hyperspace. A new target. Moments later, Dane's ship reappeared near Atlas Station, safe, for now. Kara's face appeared on his holoscreen. "You all right?" she asked. Dane let out a breath. "Yeah, barely." She nodded. "Zun is coming after you with everything he has." Dane's smirk returned. "Good. That means I don't have to chase him anymore." Kara's eyes narrowed. "You're planning something, aren't you?" Dane leaned forward, fire in his gaze. "If Zun wants war," he said, "then I'll bring the fight to him." He wasn't running anymore. Now, it was time to hunt the hunter. Dane Callahan stood on the deck of Atlas Station, staring at the holographic map of the sector. The Varkali Phantom fleet had been weakened, their home base destroyed, their stealth advantage lost. But Koresh Zun was still alive. And as long as he lived, the war wasn't over. Dane wasn't the type to wait for trouble. If Zun wanted a fight, then Dane would bring it to him. The plan. Kara Voss crossed her arms as she watched Dane. You're planning something reckless, she said. Dane smirked. When have I ever done that? She sighed. Dane, we just forced Zun into hiding. We should let the GTA fleet handle the rest. No, Dane said. Zun won't hide. He's already planning his next move. And if I wait, I lose the advantage. Kara knew he was right. Zun never backed down from a challenge. If Dane wanted to end this, he had to strike first. So what's your plan? Kara asked. Dane pointed at the holographic map. I found Zun's last known location, a pirate base on the edge of the Zurich Nebula. If he's regrouping, that's where he'll be. Kara frowned. That's deep in lawless space. Exactly, Dane said. No witnesses, no backup. Just me and him. Kara shook her head. You're insane. Dane grinned. I prefer the word determined. Into the nebula. The Iron Fang streaked through hyperspace, heading toward the Zurich Nebula. The dense cloud of swirling gases made it a perfect hiding spot for criminals and warlords. Dane had been here before. He knew how dangerous it was. Escape. Dane ran as the station began to collapse. He dodged falling debris, blasting through the remaining guards. Reaching the airlock, he leaped into his ship, engines already primed. As the Iron Fang lifted off, the station behind him erupted into a massive explosion, sending debris scattering into the nebula. Dane exhaled, gripping the controls. It was finally over. The Phantom fleet had been destroyed, and the most dangerous warlord in the sector was dead. But deep down, Dane knew his fight would never truly be over. He smirked. Time to find a new job. Dane Callahan sat in the cockpit of the Iron Fang, staring at the burning wreckage of the pirate base floating in the Zurich Nebula. The Varkali Phantom fleet was no more. Their warlord, Korishun, was dead. It should have felt like victory. But Dane knew better. A mysterious signal. As he set his course for Atlas Station, his ship's computer suddenly beeped. Incoming transmission. Unknown source. Dane frowned. No one should be contacting him now. He hesitated, then pressed the button. A distorted voice came through the speakers. Callahan, you think it's over? Dane's blood ran cold. Who is this? The voice chuckled, dark and amused. Zun was only a piece of the game. You have no idea what you've started. Dane's eyes narrowed. If you have something to say, say it. The voice whispered, almost mocking. The true power behind the Phantom fleet is still watching. Before Dane could respond, the signal cut off. For a long moment, he sat there, staring at the dead screen. Whoever that was, they weren't bluffing. Back to Atlas Station. Dane's ship landed smoothly at Atlas Station, the massive trade hub gleaming with city lights. The moment he stepped off the ramp, Karavas was waiting for him, arms crossed. You actually did it, she said. You killed Zun. Dane smirked. Told you I would. She shook her head. You should be celebrating. But you don't look happy. Dane glanced around, lowering his voice. I got a message. Someone else is pulling the strings behind Zun. Kara's expression darkened. You think there's another leader? I don't know, Dane admitted. But if there is, they're smarter than Zun. And they're still out there. Kara sighed. The GTA won't act without proof. They think the war is over. Dane knew she was right. He had no evidence, only a ghostly voice over the comms. If he wanted answers, he'd have to find them himself. An unexpected contact. Later that night, as Dane sat in a dimly lit bar on Atlas Station, a hooded figure slipped into the seat across from him. Dane didn't react. If you're here to kill me, do it fast. I hate waiting. The figure chuckled. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have seen me coming. Dane raised an eyebrow. That's cute. Who are you? The figure pulled back their hood, revealing a scared Varkali female. My name is Ryla's Zun, she said. Dane tensed. Zun's sister. I should shoot you, he said. She smirked. You could try. But I'm not here for revenge. Dane didn't lower his guard. Then what do you want? Rylus leaned closer. You were right. My brother wasn't the true leader of the Phantom Fleet. Dane frowned. Then who was? She hesitated, then whispered. The Crimson Circle. Dane had heard that name before. A secretive crime syndicate, rumored to control the black markets and pirate fleets across the galaxy. But no one had ever proven they existed. Until now. The real enemy. Rylus continued, her voice low. They gave my brother power, supplied his fleet, but when you destroyed the base, you didn't just take down Zun, you disrupted their plans. Dane exhaled. That explains the message I got. Rylus nodded. They'll come for you. And if you don't strike first, you won't survive. Dane smirked. Then I guess I need to hunt them down next. Rylus studied him. You killed my brother. I should hate you. But the Crimson Circle betrayed him too. I want them destroyed. Dane tilted his head. You want revenge. Rylus's eyes burned with cold fury. I want justice. Dane considered her for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Welcome to the hunt. She shook it. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started. Dane Callahan had hunted down warlords, outlaws, and mercenaries before. But the Crimson Circle was different. They weren't just pirates. They were planners, manipulators, the kind of people who controlled wars from the shadows. And now, they had marked him as an enemy. Good. Dane liked it that way. Tracking the circle, sitting in the Iron Fang's cockpit, Dane studied the data Rylus Zun had given him. Their operations are spread across the sector, she said, pointing at a map. But their real base is hidden. No one knows where. Dane smirked. Then we make them come to us. Kara Voss, who had insisted on joining them, leaned forward. How? Dane leaned back in his chair. By hitting them where it hurts. He tapped a blinking red dot on the map. A secret weapons depot. If we destroy this, they'll have to respond. Rylus nodded. It's risky. Dane grinned. That's what makes it fun. Assault on the depot. The Crimson Circle's weapons depot was hidden inside an asteroid field, heavily guarded, impossible to take down alone, which was why Dane had a plan. Using stolen access codes, the Iron Fang slipped past the first line of defenses. As the asteroid base came into view, Kara activated the ship's hacking system, disrupting enemy scanners. They wouldn't be invisible for long. Dane and Rylus suited up. Jetpacks, silenced weapons, high-powered explosives. This is your last chance to back out, Dane told Rylus. She smirked. I thought humans didn't hesitate. Dane chuckled. Fair enough. The two launched from the ship, flying through the vacuum toward the base. Landing on an outer platform, they moved silently, taking down guards one by one. Inside, rows of crates held advanced weapons, high-tech armor, and explosives. Dane planted charges along the walls. Then the alarm sounded. The ambush. Armed guards stormed in. Varkali, human, and other species, all mercenaries for hire. Dane and Rylus dove for cover as gunfire erupted. I thought you said this would be easy. Rylus shouted. Dane grinned. I said it would be fun. They returned fire, fighting their way through. The explosives were set, but they needed an escape route. Dane activated his comm. Kara, we need pickup. Now. Already on my way, she replied. The Iron Fang swooped in, blasting enemy fighters out of the way. Dane and Rylus sprinted to the exit. Dane fired his grappling hook, swinging onto the ship's ramp just as explosions ripped through the depot. Rylus followed, landing hard beside him. As the Iron Fang sped away, the depot erupted into a fireball, debris scattering into space. The Crimson Circle strikes back. Back on the ship, Dane watched as his screen lit up. Incoming message, unknown source. He smirked. Took them long enough. A voice came through. You don't know what you've done, Callahan. Dane leaned forward. Oh, I know exactly what I've done. I made you mad. Silence. Then a low laugh. You're playing with forces beyond your understanding. Dane shrugged. Maybe. But I play to win. The line cut off. Relis crossed her arms. They'll come for us. Dane grinned. I'm counting on it. The final battle. The Crimson Circle didn't wait long. A fleet of warships appeared on the Iron Fang's radar. They weren't hiding anymore. They're bringing everything, Kara said. Dane smirked. Good. Let's finish this. The battle was chaos. The Iron Fang weaved between enemy ships, dodging lasers and missiles. Kara fired the cannons, taking down fighters. Dane and Relis boarded the flagship, fighting their way through corridors filled with elite mercenaries. At the center of the ship, they found him. The true leader of the Crimson Circle. A human. Dane frowned. Didn't expect that. The man smirked. You should have. The fight was brutal. Hand-to-hand combat, fast and deadly. But Dane was faster. With one final move, he took down the leader. The Crimson Circle was no more. The end, or a new beginning. Back on Atlas Station, Dane sat at the bar, drink in hand. Relis leaned beside him. So what now? Dane smirked. There's always another hunt. Kara rolled her eyes. You're impossible. Dane just laughed. Somewhere in the galaxy, another threat was rising. And he'd be ready.